Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I'm excited once again to be doing another one of these unsolved case files. It's been a while. I'm not gonna lie, as much as I love doing these, the process of filming and editing does take a while. So I think every time after I'm done doing it, I need some time to recover. But I was asked to do this specific case, so I figured let's get into it. So this is the Sandra Ivey case here. I got this off of Amazon and I think it was around like $25. And I haven't opened it yet. So if you've never watched one of these videos, I've done a couple of them, maybe like 3 or so. And basically we just play this game and we solve it together. And at the end, I'll reveal who the killer was. But what I like to do first is just share everything that's included. There is a lot of reading involved that unfortunately you might get tired of listening to me talk, but that is a part of it. So if you want to see me solve this Sandra Ivey case, then keep on watching and I hope you enjoy. On the back, just some more about this. So August 10th, 2021, the world's first commercial space station, the Delta One, lost power and all communication with ground control for 28 minutes. During the blackout, a mysterious accident claimed the life of Sandra, CEO of Astro, the multi-billion-dollar space tech company responsible for launching the station. There were 5 other members aboard the Delta One and none claimed to know what happened while the power was out. Her former chief of security, Solomon Hart, was sent skyward to investigate but was given only 24 hours aboard to make his case. Though it was officially ruled an accident, he suspects there's more. One of Sandra's little astronaut pals took her out. So here's our folder, and then when you start these, you can always just put these to the side. These are the bonus envelopes, but there's a lot to be done before getting to them. The purpose of these, you have to solve certain objectives, and normally you do that by going online. So you do kind of need like access to a computer or somehow on your phone to go on like the Unsolved Case Files website, and then I'll share what you actually have to do. Anyways, first objective is prove the Delta One was sabotaged. Contains photographs relevant to the investigation. First, we have Raymond Zellick here. We have Raj Mandal. This is Sandra's office there, and it says her name on the plaque, Sandra, and then there's actually a note on the back. My dear Sandra, as difficult as it is to face retirement, looking back, I'm astounded at the wild ride it's been up until now, especially since I don't see you slowing down anytime soon. Remember, if you need an old man for anything, I'm only a phone call away. So this is, I'm guessing, Solomon, who is the guy that sent me this. Dr. Heidi Bauman. This is the spaceship. This one, why are some of them upside down now? This might be sharing somehow where the Delta One was sabotaged. Maybe like there's some wire hanging that's unplugged. I don't know. Dead or alive. She kind of look a little dead. This is probably another picture that shares that this was sabotaged. I see this thing here at the bottom, the little keypad is plugged into an override port. So that might be something that someone overrided the spaceship to do to make the power go out. There's a green sector battery bay. Okay, and that's all the pictures in this folder. Next, we have a letter from Solomon. He's just saying that he needs help. There's something wrong here that I can't see. I turn these materials over to you. My name is Solomon. I led the investigation into Sandra's death. She first hired me to serve as her bodyguard on the road, and then she made me chief of security. She needed someone she could trust, and I'd do anything to protect her. I wasn't there when it really mattered. I retired 6 months before the Delta One's first public voyage, the one that took her life. Raymond Zellick, so that guy that was the first picture, he's the CFO, pulled me out of retirement to investigate. My mission was to perform a preliminary investigation. It was never supposed to be an open and shut case, but the complete investigation I recommended never happened. I was barely back on Earth for 24 hours when I read the news article I've included in the case. They quoted my report completely out of context. It's true I didn't find any hard evidence, but it was far too soon to rule out sabotage. So here's the news article that he was just talking about. It's usually important with these news articles, like you have the regular article and then somewhere I feel like Raymond Zellick's on the back here, but like something random usually is included that you probably wouldn't, you just overlook. And I like to just kind of summarize, because this first paragraph is like saying about the entire world was shocked yesterday. Not that that's not important, but it kind of doesn't really like make a difference. So I like to just kind of briefly, if you have played this game or if you're playing along, then you might notice like I kind of skip around and just kind of spark notes certain things. 2 weeks ago, on August 1st, Sandra was launched to the Delta One along with 2 crew members and 3 guests to spend 14 days aboard the luxury station. On August 12th, 2 days before the crew's highly anticipated return, they announced that the landing party would no longer be open to the public and media spectators. This sudden shift toward privacy was explained yesterday morning when Raymond announced that Sandra had been killed and all celebrations had been canceled out of respect for her family and the crew. The authorities performed a complete autopsy after the body was recovered and confirmed the cause of death as suffocation. This aligned with the reports that the automatic fire suppression system activated and removed oxygen from part of the space station. According to Zellick, a sudden system failure disrupted the power across the station and cut off all communications between Delta One and ground control. The resulting blackout wouldn't have been immediately critical, but a fire within one of the station's 3 battery networks went unnoticed amidst the chaos until it was too late for Sandra to evacuate. Reports from the crew tell the story of a frantic sequence of events lasting just over half an hour. I just can't wrap my head around it, reported Jordan Ivey, Sandra's elder brother and Delta One's lead engineer. I designed that fire suppression system to save lives up there and it killed my sister. Can't stop wondering what went through her head, stuck in that dark room as each breath became more difficult. She trusted me to protect her and I didn't. And then while aboard Delta One, Solomon performed a thorough investigation of the scene and questioned the remaining crew to determine if criminal misconduct was involved. It revealed no evidence of foul play. And then Raymond Zellick revealed the details of the accident investigation at yesterday's press conference. After a thorough exam by none other than the chief of security, Solomon, it has been determined that this tragedy was the result of an unforeseeable system malfunction. The issue in question was easily fixed once it was brought to light, and several new fail-safes are already in place. And up top here, it continues on, but it's not continuing on from the previous page. So it just says fault has not been assigned. Astro is not entertaining speculation on whether this was the result of faulty construction or criminal negligence of safety protocols by the crew. Just some other stories. Florida Panhandle braces for tropical storm. Hardcover nonfiction, business, and young adult. These are just like some books over on this side here. We have the preliminary accident investigation report. This was on August 13th at 7:33. I don't think I've ever had like a timeline of events, so I like this. Okay, so Tuesday, August 10th, 2021, Sandra was killed while aboard. 11:10 a.m., a station-wide blackout disconnects all communications between Delta and ground control. 11:20, a fire starts in the green sector batteries, activating the automatic fire suppression system. 11:25, the system seals the green hub from the rest of the station and removes all oxygen. 11:38, power is restored and ground control believes Sandra is deceased in the lab module. 11:49, ship commander Amelia Lopez reports to ground control that Sandra is missing. And then 2 minutes later, 11:51, the lab module is remotely sealed to prevent interference with the scene per CFO's instruction. 11:54, Lopez obtains visual confirmation through lab door window that Sandra is dead. That's the top part there. We have 5 people of interest. First is Amelia Lopez, the former Air Force captain and Delta One ship commander. Amelia failed to account for Sandra for over 20 minutes, only acting after it was too late to save her. There's Jordan Ivey, which is Sandra's brother. He designed a new battery rotation process and allowed Hiro Sasaki to perform it. An error in this process likely caused the blackout. Then there's Hiro Sasaki. He's the CEO of Sasaki Corp and longstanding rival of Astro. He was performing the battery rotation that likely caused the blackout. His company also provided the batteries currently used on the Delta One. Kurt Abrams, colonel in the U.S. Space Force. He was evasive in interrogation, particularly about the cargo he brought aboard. He was outside of the station on a spacewalk during the blackout. Then there's Ajay Singh, famous yogi and spiritual advisor to Sandra. He secured a multi-million-dollar ticket to space mere months after meeting her. He exhibits no sign of grief over her death, claiming it was meant to be. Preliminary investigation findings. It is the belief of all parties that Hiro accidentally input the wrong code, setting a full battery to emergency charge, and that this action is responsible for both blackout and fire. The AFS system was activated by the smoke from the battery and sealed the green hub from the rest of the station before depleting oxygen from all smoke-affected areas. This action successfully put out the fire, but resulted in the suffocation of Sandra, who was trapped inside the science lab. Case file inventory. This is everything that's included if you want just a brief overview. On the back, the investigation timeline. There's just inspections of the lab module, the green sector battery bay, the control room, interrogated all of the people that were suspects, in case you want to just read it yourself. Girl, we get a little poster. The blue sector. The airlock is the staging area for an out-of-this-world experience, a real spacewalk. Cafeteria, the control room. The 3 places I was just showing, it points to where it's located. Side here, there's the recreation center, habitation over here, observatory over here, the greenhouse, science lab is on the other side, and this is the health center, and then the greenhouse. The witness statement from Raymond, so we're gonna summarize this. This was the first visit since the Delta One's completion, the magnum opus of the Ivy name. The world is on the edge of its seat, and if we don't get ahead of the narrative before the press, the stock will plummet. We stand to lose the whole company, and Sandra's dream of opening outer space to the people will be set back by decades, maybe more. Sandra will be remembered as just another billionaire who flew too close to the sun. It's not much time, but this is our only chance to get an independent investigator on the scene to provide an official statement. The witness statement from Raj Mandal, and there's also a diagram here. We received near instant updates from all of Delta One's critical systems, and at 11:10 a.m. yesterday morning, it went dark. For 28 minutes, we had no contact with the station. At 11:38, the silence was broken by a sudden rush of alarms as chaos filled our mission control room. Things settled quickly, but the medical team remained in panic as their health monitors resynced and Sandra's pulse showed a flat line. At 11:49, Amelia finally called in to give us a report. No one had seen Sandra during the blackout, and she was presumed to be somewhere in the green sector. Raymond said we needed to prepare for the worst. He ordered me to lock the lab door in order to keep the crew from disrupting the scene. After the green hub re-oxygenated, Amelia got a visual of Sandra's body through the window of the lab and confirmed our fears. We will unlock the hatch remotely as soon as Mr. Hart confirms he's ready to investigate. We received no data from the Delta One while the power was down, but the communication system has backup storage like the black box on an airplane. The radios are pushed to talk like walkie-talkies. I provided the onboard communications transcript for the case file. So what do I believe happened? On August 2nd, Jordan Ivey requested permission to override the automatic battery cycle. He was concerned that the cycle algorithm was running batteries too low before rotating. It wasn't really a critical issue, but it would shorten the lifespan of the batteries, and it was important to Jordan, so we gave him the green light. The manual override was meant to be temporary for this mission only. Mostly because we only trusted Jordan to perform it. He was going to collect enough data to make the necessary changes to the automation when he returned to Earth. I reviewed his proposal along with our lead energy storage expert and electrical systems engineer. We agreed that the protocol was sound and still do, but a clumsy finger can cause a number of problems. We don't usually approve manual overrides because the risk for human error is too great, but we trusted Jordan. The same can't be said for Hiro Sasaki. I believe Hiro mistakenly set a full charge battery to emergency charge. This routed all available solar power to one fully charged battery. An empty battery on emergency charge can fully recharge in minutes. A full battery, like the one Hiro sent the emergency power to, would overheat almost immediately. Onboard communications. I'm excited for this just to see what they were talking about. The duration of this was for 35 minutes. For the most part, it's Amelia and Jordan going back and forth. Starts off with Amelia at 11:10. Jordan, we have some lights out in the red sector. Was this scheduled? Please report. Jordan responds back, we're dark in the control rooms too. I think the whole station's blacked out. It looks like Hiro tripped something on the battery controls. Amelia asks, why is Hiro with you in a restricted area? Jordan responds, well, Hiro says, I was running the pointless battery rotation because Jordan was too busy for his own busy work today. Jordan says, maybe if I knew what Hiro did to cause... Hiro cuts him off and says, Amelia, I followed Jordan's process right off the clipboard Jordan told me to use. Amelia asks Jordan if it's serious. He says, I don't think so. Our life support systems are still operational. The emergency power will keep essentials running until we can get the main grid back up. Hiro says, if you want me to leave, just say so. I'm just a guest here anyways. Jordan says, I think he's heading your way, Commander. You'll know as soon as I do about the timeline we're working with. Can you give me a hand in here? And then Amelia says she's in the middle of something, but she'll be over as soon as she can. And then 5 minutes later, Amelia, are you almost here? I could use a hand with this flashlight. Amelia says, affirmative. I'm entering the blue hub now. Amelia to Hiro, come in, over. Jordan responds, he left his radio in here when he stormed out of the control room. At 11:24, Jordan says, urgent message to all personnel, evacuate the green sector immediately. Amelia asks if anyone is in the green sector. She has AJ and Hiro here in the red hub. I'm heading towards green for a final sweep. Jordan says, no, stay where you are. We've got under a minute before the hatch seals for fire suppression. Jordan then says, one of the batteries blew in the green hub, smoking, maybe worse, I'm not sure, but the automatic fire suppression system's active. Amelia says she's at the hatch to the green hub. It started hissing before I could reach it. I'm only seeing smoke inside. Amelia asks at 11:30, is Sandra with you? AJ says that Sandra meditates in the greenhouse. Basically, they're just kind of arguing back and forth about how soon can they get into the green sector. And we have the manual and battery rotation process written by Jordan. So the frequency daily at 11 CDT until August 13th. The purpose is optimize longevity of station batteries until Jordan can return to Houston and update the Sasaki Corporation automatic battery rotation algorithm. Procedure is rotate batteries in green battery bay. If the active battery is under 40%, change standby battery to active, change original active to charge, change original charge to standby. If the active battery is over 40%, no action is needed. The one photograph that was in this evidence thing, you could kind of see the percentage of everything and what it says. Step 2, rotate batteries in red battery bay. Repeat the steps above and then do it for the blue. So there's some commands that sets it to active, standby, charge, hibernate, inactive, and emergency charge. Use emergency charge and empty batteries only, never more than 10 minutes. So each one has like a little numbered code, and then this is like what it does. This from Dr. Heidi Bauman, and it says, hello again, Saul. I gave you the official personnel records, but I felt compelled to share some off the record info on the Delta One roster before you head up there. Colonel Kurt is a closed book, but he was particularly tight-lipped when it came to the cargo he wanted to bring aboard. And as far as I know, he got to take whatever he wanted. Seems like no one would go through that much trouble if there was nothing to hide. Hyro, as you know, his company was a fierce rival of Astro. Sasaki Corp declared plans for a private space station years ago, but multiple setbacks led to a very public flop. He's a fierce enemy of Astro. We know he leaked false rumors to the press, and we believe he was behind multiple cyber attacks on our employee server looking for restricted info on the Delta. Like, why was he on this to begin with? If he's an enemy, why are you gonna let an enemy aboard? Eventually, Hyro and Sandra had a 6-hour closed-door meeting, and suddenly Sasaki Corp was our top sponsor. He even donated the batteries we installed on the Delta. Sandra's wellness guru came out of nowhere. He's technically an employee of Astro, though. The paperwork on that's a mess. No one knows much about him, where he came from. Sandra found his book and started attending his practice here in Houston shortly after you retired. Sandra claimed AJ's guidance was critical to making the partnership with Sasaki. She hired AJ directly and bought 500 copies of his book for our staff. He moved into her guest house and sat beside her on every meeting, saying nothing to anyone beyond a whisper in Sandra's ear. Personal advisor is a title they made up, but I have no idea what he does. He doesn't raise any specific red flags. Amelia Lopez is the best of the best, but she's had a large chip on her shoulder since being discharged from the Air Force. Her military pedigree is evident, but she shapes quickly when dealing with less disciplined teammates. She's always been a bit high-strung, but something about this mission has her really uptight. She's even reporting physical symptoms that I think are stress-induced. I already sent you my last correspondence with her about dietary restrictions. Jordan, I saved Jordan for last because I wanted to be clear that no crew member is perfect. He's the only one who was initially rejected for this mission. His technical expertise isn't in question. He's a genius and knows Delta One better than anyone. He responds poorly in high-pressure situations. That's why Raj had to replace him as CTO. He's 10 times worse than when Sandra is involved. It's clear he feels overshadowed by her. Sandra has a protective streak when Jordan's concerned. She overrode our decision and approved Jordan for the mission. That is all of the information, and we're going to move on to the suspects. First, we have Amelia Lopez, personnel record. If you just want to read about her and her height and weight and everything, you can. I'm going to move on to the bottom part. So this talks about her psychological and physical profile, and she had breast cancer. Chief psychologist report says she's well trained for her duties as commanding officer. The only concern is that she displays a degree of perfectionism bordering on neurotic that may cause friction between herself and less compliant crewmates. Let's move on to the incident report. This is sharing the location and control room. She just checks off yes and no for certain things. If there's incident-related injuries, casualties caused by user error, additional training needed. So the statement, she says that she was in the red sector when the lights went out. Jordan confirmed the outage was station-wide. He and Hyro were at each other's throats. Hyro had been given access to the control room and the battery override codes. There are severe breaches of security, and I was furious, but I needed to keep Jordan focused on fixing the problem. Jordan said the situation was non-critical and asked me to head to the control room to help out. and says she's on her way to the control room. Colonel Abrams radioed in. I was anxious having a man outside like that, but he had enough oxygen and Jordan had to fix the power before we could get him in. After a few minutes in the control room, it was clear Jordan was struggling to reverse whatever Jairo had done. I radioed Jairo to walk us through his steps, but he left it in the control room, so I headed towards the red sector to find him. I got to the red hub. AJ came bumbling out of the observatory. There wasn't time to explain, so I told him to just sit tight. Jairo entered from habitation just in time to hear Jordan give the evac order over the radio to leave the green sector. I bolted to the green sector to make sure it was empty, but I was too late. And that's when it hit me, where was Sandra? I rushed back to the red sector and searched every module, but only found Sandra's radio in her room. I called Jordan to see if she was with him in the control room, but she wasn't, so I told AJ and Jairo to scour the red sector while I checked the cafeteria. I went next door to make sure the colonel was safe, while Jordan got the airlock ready. We had a few minutes before the green sector would unlock. Contact Houston. I thought they might have info to help us rescue Sandra. That's when we found out there wouldn't be any rescue attempts. The interrogation between Solomon and Amelia. She's just repeating the same thing. From the start of this crisis, what were you doing to keep Sandra safe? That question doesn't feel appropriate given the complexity of the situation. The radio transcript from Raj shows it took you nearly 20 minutes to even ask where Sandra was. Sir, I was trusting my lead engineer, Jordan. He told me the situation wasn't critical and he'd have us back online soon. By the time I knew what was happening, it was too late to adjust. The record shows that you broke radio silence first to ask Jordan what was happening. This was soon after things went dark, is that right? 15 seconds at most. I didn't know if the outage was isolated to me or station-wide. She says she got to the blue sector as fast as she could to assist Jordan. Says that it took you almost 5 minutes to get to the blue hub. Well, truth be told, sir, I was in the latrine when the lights went out, in the red hub specifically. What took you 6 minutes to get to the control room? With respect, sir, I don't think you want the details. She claims she was having stomach issues. Dr. Bauman can confirm. You were prescribed a special diet and hadn't reported any issues for a week prior to this. Quite a coincidence, don't you think? So they're kind of just going back and forth about the stomach issues. Solomon says, Dr. Bauman speculated that your troubles are stress-induced. She thinks the pressure of this mission is getting to you. What had you on edge that morning? I was at 4 cups of coffee a day when we launched, and now I'm cold turkey. I had 2 cups of herbal tea that morning, but it wasn't enough. I was feeling better, so I drank some coffee, thought it would help. I was wrong. Even still, I can't grasp your priorities here. What happened after you left the latrine? I rushed to the blue sector like Jordan asked. The colonel radioed in as I was passing through. He hadn't made it back inside the station. Didn't you know he was out there? I assumed that needed your sign off. That's right, but the colonel has been on a spacewalk every day. I think he'd sleep out there if we let him. The colonel was the last person I was worried about. At least he knows what he's doing up here. Then why didn't you worry about any of these undisciplined civilians? Jordan told me life support was operational, and based on his initial reports, I thought he could just swap out a blown fuse and we'd be up and running again. Solomon says he's getting tired. Amelia saying it was Jordan's fault while taking no responsibility. Then we have an email, Dr. Heidi Bauman to Solomon Security. Please find my correspondence with Amelia before regarding her dietary restrictions. A forwarded email from the doctor to Amelia. After looking at your charts with Dr. Bao, we both agree that it seems you're experiencing intense bout of IBS. This is likely a symptom of the acute stress surrounding this mission or a progression of a developing dietary sensitivity. None of your other readings suggest viral infection, and none of your other crew are experiencing issues, so we don't think it's food poisoning. We advise that you increase your fiber intake from fruits and vegetables and avoid any foods containing lactose, gluten, or heavy spices. Drink mostly water and avoid excess caffeine entirely. You need to eliminate coffee until this stabilizes. We know the latter request may be particularly difficult, but you are in luck. AJ requested a supply of teas be sent with his personal effects. It'll be enough to get you out of a morning slump without being too taxing on your digestion. So we have Sandra's brother, Jordan. His personnel record. The psychologist report. He's easily flustered when the world doesn't share his compliance to expected outcomes. This makes him a questionable choice for any mission where he may be a lead decision maker in a high-stakes scenario. He is prone to make rash decisions or no decision at all when presented with unexpected obstacles that require fast action. And it says that he's diagnosed with anxiety but not medicated. Here's his incident report. He says he was working through an air filtration issue from the control room when everything went dark. Jairo was there. I left him at battery controls just a few minutes. I knew he did something wrong. I asked him what happened and he just stared at me like he couldn't fathom that he might be at fault. Amelia radioed in, so I knew the main electrical grid must be off. Essential systems were still on emergency power, so it didn't feel life-threatening. I asked Jairo to walk me through what he did, but he got flustered and stormed off. I asked Amelia to assist, and it took forever for her to get down the hallway, so I was on my own. Colonel called in. That's when we both realized that he was still on the outside station. We couldn't let him in until power was back on. Okay, this is the interrogation between Solomon and Jordan, saying that Hyro messed up and set the standby battery to emergency charge, so it overloaded. Solomon says that lines up with Raj's assessment. I understand you came up with this battery process after arriving here on Delta, is that right? I noticed the batteries in each sector weren't rotating efficiently. Each sector has 3 batteries, 1 active, 1 charging, and a full 1 on standby. Sasaki Corp designed them to automatically rotate after the active one drains or the charging one gets full, but it was letting the active battery get as low as 5% with 2 full batteries sitting idle, which is ridiculous. So you decided to override it manually. Is that a standard solution? It was only supposed to be for this trip. His plan was to observe and take notes so he could reprogram the algorithm when he got back. So this was a correction to the Sasaki Corp algorithm. Is that why you had Hyro running this process? Not exactly. He gave me an earful every time my battery adjustments came up until eventually Sandra stepped in. She proposed that we let Hyro run the manual rotation once as a professional and partner to weigh in on the changes needed to the automation. Did Sandra mean for him to do it on his own with no instruction or supervision from you? I already wrote out the instructions. I even highlighted the part about not setting the batteries to emergency charge. So you didn't say anything, you just let him loose on a station's main power source. He designed the batteries. He's not a lay person, and I wrote a step-by-step guide. Jordan puts in a request to change station procedures here. The purpose is to fine-tune the 3-unit battery rotation for the red, green, and blue hub battery bays. So this was approved, obviously, for that. We have Hyro Sasaki here. Psychologist report. He's talented and capable. His background as entrepreneur shows that he's a natural leader. His natural inclination towards leadership may lead to disgruntlement when he's not in position of authority. Incident report for him as well. Incident details for the power distribution and what needs to be replaced, any injuries or anything related to that. And then his statement was he was in the control room running the battery rotation. He followed Jordan's process to the letter, but it was only a few minutes in when it went all dark. We determined that our essential systems were still working, and I left when it became clear that he would rather cast blame than work to fix the problem. I went back to my room to let the professionals fix it. My radio must have detached from the Velcro because Amelia came into the red sector hub yelling for me. I came out of habitation to meet her as soon as I heard. Amelia immediately launched herself towards green sector, leaving AJ and me stranded in the red hub. She returned asking if we had seen Sandra. We hadn't, so we split up to check all the rooms and other modules in the red sector. Amelia radioed Jordan to ask if he had seen her anywhere in the blue sector. When he said he hadn't, I think that's when it all sank in for us. Jordan eventually brought the main power back online. Once the colonel was safe in the airlock, we met in the red sector hub and received confirmation from ground control that she didn't make it. The interrogation, asking about the battery. Do you believe your actions may have contributed to the blackout? I believe the battery rotation was automated for a reason, and Jordan insisting we override a complex and meticulously designed system in the name of a fractional percentage of efficiency endangered the crew. Did you also write whatever program was being overridden? Yes, the staff of worldwide experts at Sasaki Corp did. Before we both say something regrettable, I assure you that I am first and foremost a businessman, and having my technology at the heart of this disaster isn't good PR. Solomon says there only seems to have been an issue with the override procedure while you were at the controls. Jordan's protocol seemed to work fine before that, and ground control signed off on the whole thing. Did he give you a walkthrough? He barely told me where to find the control panel, just pointed at a clipboard and left me on my own. I've also never been given an overview of the power infrastructure for the Delta One, despite asking numerous times. Do you think you could have done something wrong? Respectfully, is that a real question? Yes, I agree with ground control's assessment that something went wrong during the rotation process that resulted in an overcharged battery. I followed those directions to the letter. I believe the fault was with Jordan for trying to fix what wasn't broken with some half-baked procedure. You have the most electrical systems knowledge of anyone on this vessel, and you left the one area that might have been useful. You can see why that's suspicious, right? So where did you go when you left the control room? To my room in habitation. It seemed a good place to sit in the dark. I wasn't there long before Amelia arrived. Did you see Sandra at all, or AJ? AJ was there when I came back into the red hub to meet Amelia, but the last time I saw Sandra was maybe 30 minutes before I left to meet Jordan in the control room. She apologized for Jordan's attitude and thanked me for agreeing to humor him. Some more about Hyro and Sasaki Corporation. So you can see here he is holding Jordan's override paper that has the instructions. He got it on a clipboard and everything. So clearly he did read the instructions about the battery. 2 more people to go through. We got the colonel here. All of his background and experience is classified, so there's not really too much to read here. His psychologist report says he's calm and aloof. He's extremely stable and compliant. He He may clash with personalities that attempt to exert undue authority. Incident report, he talks about the green sector and what needs to be done there, down here. His statement was he was out on a scheduled EVA, that's a spacewalk, as you civilians like to call it, when the lights on the station went dark. I knew something had gone wrong, so I used my tether to navigate back to the airlock. It's quite difficult without the guiding lights. I could hear some of the chatter between Jordan and Captain Lopez and piece together what happened. I got back to the airlock. I finally had a free hand to use my own radio, and Captain Lopez informed me that they could not get me to safety until power was restored. Technically, I was already inside the station, but if Jordan hadn't gotten the power on to repressurize the airlock within the hour, you'd have another dead body. When I overheard that Miss Ivey was unaccounted for, it was clear from the tone that they anticipated the worst. Interrogation: you weren't actually within the station for a majority of the incident, is that correct? Affirmative. I was on a scheduled spacewalk at the time. It seems like you've been on a number of spacewalks since the voyage began, far more than any of the other guests, or even crew for that matter. Any reason for that? I didn't come all the way up here to sit inside. Fair enough, I suppose, and there was a purpose to the spacewalk. You said it was scheduled. I was performing a visual check of hull integrity, looking for rips in the thermal blanketing, signs of gas leaks, and so on. Did you have any reason to be concerned about any of that? You want to be proactive about everything you can up here because anything can become life-threatening. What is it you do with the Space Force? He says it's classified, and everything else is classified. I hear that there are disagreements about the personal cargo you wanted to bring aboard. What's so important you have to hide it? I brought my cargo concerns to the authority I was directed to, and we came to an understanding. That's all there is to say. You really thought that a space shuttle wouldn't be more lax than the TSA? You know what I think? I think the U.S. Space Force sent you up here to do more than just go on spacewalks. An innocent space tourist wouldn't need to hide behind security clearances at every turn. He's claiming that he was almost a victim. The entire situation reeks of corporate overreach, cutting corners wherever they can, and sending a bunch of wet behind the ear civilians up here to play astronaut with untested technology. He's not really helpful. A letter to Solomon from General Jerome P. Leavitt from the Space Force. Thank you for your inquiry regarding Colonel. This letter serves an official record that your request has been denied and you've been formally asked to discontinue any additional lines of inquiry into the specific subject matter. Regarding his professional motivations to attend this mission or the personal cargo he carried, you're more than welcome to take that up with the Colonel himself. He is aware of what he is authorized to share with the civilian, and I expect you to respect that he is within his rights and duty to withhold classified information. They will not tolerate any allegations of non-cooperation, nor the attempts to besmirch the good name of one of our own. Okay, and then our last person is AJ Singh. He's charismatic and he's suited for prolonged occupancy on an orbital vessel. His knowledge of human psychology and profiling acumen may render traditional profiling methods ineffective. His statement: he was in the observatory meditating at the time of the blackout. I had the lights out, my radio off to eliminate distraction. I was unaware of the exact moment it all began. I recall feeling a shift in the station's aura. I did my best to ignore it and remain empty, but the sensation soon grew too powerful to ignore. I made my way to the red hub just as Amelia came floating in from the hallway. She was vibrating with anger. I looked to her for clarity on what had befallen the station, but she was intent on finding Hyro, who entered the hub from habitation soon after. The tension between them was palpable. I felt an eruption looming just as Jordan's voice broke through on the radio calling for evacuation. Amelia rushed off, leaving Hyro and I behind to wait. She soon returned asking for Sandra. Amelia's anger now overtaken by alarm. We remained hopeful, but now I know the sensation I felt was Sandra's path reaching its terminus. There's nothing to mourn, we need only to witness the divine will of the universe. His interview: for someone who's only known Sandra a few months, you seem to have made yourself indispensable, important enough to secure a multi-million-dollar ticket to space. Any insight you could provide on that? It's my opinion that we live day to day in varying degrees of separation from where we are meant to be at any given time. When one does find that sacred alignment, breathtaking, undeniable to all who witness it, and even more so to those who experience it. I prefer something a little more concrete, if you don't mind. What service did you provide to the CEO? I helped Sandra see the signpost leading down her sacred path. I apologize if that's not concrete enough, but I'm afraid that's the nature of my service. I helped her to see Hyro as an ally in waiting. When she saw a boulder in her path, I helped her see a mountain that needed only to be climbed to new heights. I noticed Sandra's address on your Astro paperwork. You don't have your own residence back on Earth? I do, but Sandra invited me to live in her guest house. I assure you it was nothing scandalous. A guide cannot simply call down from the mountaintop. He must meet the wanderer wherever they are in their journey. I offered to let her come live with me and my students, but we both knew it was a pale offer to a person of her ambition. You mentioned other students. It seems to me that you couldn't have much time for followers, or students rather, given how exclusively you seem to have connected yourself to Sandra. When you keep an eye on your own path, it is easy enough to see who is walking in your direction and who isn't. And he found himself drawn to Sandra. It's my belief now that it was because her tragic end was so close that both Sandra and myself felt that urgency. There were steps she needed to take down her path, and unknown to the both of us, she didn't have long to get there. And where exactly were you during the blackout? He was in the observatory meditating, like you said. She's the CEO of the multi-billion-dollar company that put this modern miracle in the sky, and yet she seems to be the last thing on anyone's mind. You're trying to find someone to blame. It's your stated purpose for being here. I can assure you that finding someone at fault will not bring Sandra back. Okay, there's a article, the Houstonian Times. He breathes new life into Houston's Midtown. He chats about his new studio and finding your deepest self. Today we sit with AJ, developer of Deep Self Method, at his new studio, Midtown. DSM is a yoga and meditation ritual that's taking health and wellness scene by storm. He spent most of his life in the remote Himalayas. In India, I gained the title of Swami Singharu, but I don't go by that here unless it's at a book signing. Taking so few students means that Singh has to be particularly selective about those he guides, and he is notorious for turning away some of the most prestigious clients who come to his door. He says there's no rubric for selecting his clients. He chooses those he thinks he can help the most. One such person is Sandra, the star-bound luminary and CEO. In between test flights and planning for the official opening of the Delta One, she's been spotted more than once coming out of his new studio. That is everything that's included. That's obviously the longest part. Now it's just putting together the evidence and figuring out the objectives. The first objective is to prove that the Delta was sabotaged. Once you find the evidence for that, you go on unsolvedcasefiles.com/Sandra-1. So I'm going to sit here, try to figure some things out, and then we'll see what they are requiring. Okay, y'all. So I got one of the pieces right so far. So going back to what I had said about Hyro and how you can see he's reading the instructions, this is going to be part of proving that this was sabotaged. And I did use a hint though, I'm not going to lie. So for the hint, it said that the battery instructions were going to be part of the objective to prove that it was sabotaged. So who's holding the instructions but Hyro here on social media. So it says that I solved objective 1. Someone swapped the battery rotation instructions. Oh, I didn't even know that. Girl, I was blaming Hyro because I thought he was lying. Hold on. I got it right, but like I really didn't get it right for the right reason. I don't really think that Hyro did it, just because I feel like you would be the most obvious because you're an enemy and now you're coming aboard. But then again, like that could be, you know, motive. Why this was right is because, but the papers are different. So this is what it's supposed to look like. You know, it's highlighted at the bottom. And you can see on the paper he's holding, there's nothing highlighted. Even though it is kind of blurry, you can still make out the words. At the very bottom, for the battery commands, 911 it says sets battery to active, when really that sets to emergency charge. So we're going to eliminate Hyro being a suspect, in my opinion, because he just didn't have the correct paper. So someone else was sabotaging him. Okay, let's read what we have to do next. Okay, so here we go. Envelope A. Objective 2 is prove the fire suppression system didn't kill Sandra. Another letter from Solomon. Thank you, investigator. You've cracked this case wide open. Your discovery raises several new questions. Why was there a fake version of the battery instructions in the control room? Who made it? Who put it there? It never made sense that Sandra would have stayed in the lab for 15 minutes after the lights went out. She would have gotten to Jordan before anyone else and helped him fix the problem. I'm convinced Sandra was already dead when the blackout happened. Why would someone risk their own life sabotaging the station unless they desperately needed to create a distraction? There's no evidence that Sandra was bound or locked in the lab, so it's only explanation that makes sense. I just can't prove it. I contacted the USSF now that we have proof of foul play. They're under a lot of scrutiny and can't afford a public connection to Sandra's death, so I leveraged that to get more info on Colonel Abrams' personal cargo. It should come as no surprise that Kurt was up to something. The USSF swears it had nothing to do with the accident. They claim Kurt was sent to test an experimental drug in zero gravity and to scope out the Delta One's technology. P.S. I've included a clipping I think you'll find interesting. The members of the original Delta One mission met up recently to dedicate a new building for the Ivey Institute at Sandra's alma mater. They've been quite busy since the accident. There's already a movie, I'm assuming. Is that Kevin Hart? Did y'all see recently people like share any scenario and then there'd be a like a meme of Kevin Hart basically? Oh my god, it was so funny. So surviving members of Delta One tragedy dedicate new lab building to Sandra. Ivey Institute of Aerospace Engineering opened its doors to a new cohort of starry-eyed Rice University students yesterday. The institute was funded by a trust left by Sandra, a Rice alumnus. Sandra's brother and current CTO shared a few heartfelt stories about life growing up with Sandra. Standing next to him was the new Astro CEO. Wow, Hiro. To anyone in the tech world, Sasaki is a household name, and many may remember him as a rival. As Sasaki explained in his dedication speech, rivalry is born from deep respect for what the other might accomplish, as he vowed to carry on Sandra's vision. Major Emilio Lopez, the ship commander for Delta One, was also in attendance alongside Colonel Kurt. AJ Singh, not pictured, was unable to attend. He opened a remote yoga retreat in Northern Oregon with a strict digital detox policy banning all connected devices. According to the event coordinator, he never replied to the evite. And this is just kind of going on from, I guess, something that wasn't included. My hope is that we never hear another story like that again, said General Levitt when discussing his personal motivations for constructing the Commercial Space Security Amendments Act being passed in front of the House of Reps early next week. The bill would secure the right of the U.S. Space Force to appoint and train special officers, deemed space marshals, to be present on all commercial space stations 24/7 to provide security and to serve as the acting legal authority. A movie called 28 Minutes, and I'm pretty sure that's Natalie Portman as well. Is that Harrison Ford? I don't even know, but there's a movie. Then we have a classified document from the General. Operation Mighty Mouse, I think is what it's called. The mission summaries oversee a top secret scientific experiment on behalf of the USSF within the microgravity environment of the Delta One space station. Background details: they developed a new supplement for astronauts. B90X, like P90X, oh my god, is designed to prevent the loss of muscle and bone massity in zero gravity. It's still highly experimental, but we believe it could enable our plans for a permanent military force in outer space within this decade. Necessary materials: the experiment will occur inside a battery-powered habitat for 2 rodent subjects. The habitat has an automatic feeder, regulated water supply, and automatic light and temp controls. The unit is odor controlled to prevent the suspicion, but must be kept uncovered to allow fresh air intake and exhaust. The unit cannot be stored in unpressurized cargo areas while traveling to and from Delta One, as it's not pressurized and doesn't have its own self-contained air supply. Primary objective is to keep the apparatus safe and undetected while maintaining the requirements for the habitat to function. The internal enclosure is locked and you will not be provided the keys to access the rodents. In the event that a rodent dies or suffers other adverse effects, you have no responsibility nor the capability to intervene. The unit itself will automatically record all data needed for the experiment. We've made everything as hands-off as possible to ensure the secrecy of the project and accuracy of the results. Under no circumstances should any member of Astro be made aware of this mission. Secondary objective is collect as much data as possible about the Delta itself during your stay. There are several international corporations who pay billions for the plans to the Delta One. In the event of a critical breach in security resulting from this mission, the USSF will categorically deny any knowledge of the development of B90X or your involvement in its experimentation. So the colonel clearly had these rodents or something in his cargo, which is why he didn't want them to go through it. We have a scientific little report here. Previous reports conclude muscle loss as high as 15% can be experienced by humans in less than 2 weeks of sustained microgravity. So we tested B90X during a 14-day cycle. All animal experiments were carried out in accordance with protocols approved by the U.S. Space Force. 2 male standard strain Wistar rats were chosen as subjects. They were enclosed in a fully automated habitat that provided regulated access to food, light, and water. Subject 1 was given no access to B90X, while Subject 2 was given a separate food supply that was blended 10% by volume with it. The B90X supplementation in Subject 2 stopped the expected muscle loss and showed radical potential as a muscle growth stimulant. Look at the size of... So this was before and then after for the first one, and then this was before and after for the second one. Look how big this one got. And Objective 2 was prove the fire suppression system did not kill Sandra. I feel like they be giving you new information and you're like, maybe it has something to do with the little mouse. I think maybe... the mouse would have died or something, right? With the fire suppression, it was suffocated or had like smoke inhalation. Okay, after arriving back on Earth, the subjects were both weighed and measured before euthanized for dissection and autopsy. So they made it back to Earth, but I don't know where they had the mice located because they had to be in a certain environment. So I did get one right. The first piece is the Mighty Mouse instructions. You have to figure out where the mice were located. I would think like the science lab, but no one could know what was happening. So it's like the colonel had to have these mice somewhere that like no one would find them or see them out in the open. Where's MH908 at? Wait. Oh, and this, for the record, this is Sandra. I made a joke at the beginning. I didn't realize. I thought she was just floating. Yeah, that was Sandra. That's Sandra dead. Okay, everyone. I'm pretty sure when I was filming, you know, I even flipped the picture around. Why is this picture upside down in here? Like everything else perfect. This one, why are some of them upside down now? That was a hint right there, you guys. You might need to get your magnifying glasses out for this one. So this is Sandra. But the reason that this was upside down is because right here you're going to see some MH908, which is where the mice are in the room with Sandra. So that's why the picture was upside down in the folder or the envelope. So I'm going to say that these are going to be, I already have this correct. So this is probably what is going to show where the little mice were hanging out. So I got the first part of that correct, but now it's asking question 2. Please confirm you understand the evidence fully by answering the question below. Which mouse fact is needed to solve the objective? I'm going to say the mouse's will to live, probably. The unit cannot be stored in unpressurized cargo areas while traveling. I really want to say the mouse need air to breathe. I want to say. Do we think that's correct? Okay, I got it right. If you get it wrong, you know, just keep, you could go down every single one. But I don't want to be wrong. And that's what I had said, that the mice made it back to Earth, so they didn't die. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Look at me being a little detective. Envelope B. Okay, so not too much in this one. Another letter from Solomon. If Kurt's mice survived in science lab, there must have been air to breathe. The fire suppression system didn't kill Sandra. I have a few friends at Astra who still take my calls, so I ran all this by Raj. He confirmed that the AFS system only removes oxygen in rooms where smoke is detected, so if the lab door was closed before the battery began smoking, the lab would have not been flushed of oxygen. Sandra was trapped in there, but there was plenty of air to breathe. When she was found suffocated so close to the fire, everyone assumed that the lab was flushed along with the hub. It was the most logical conclusion, and with no evidence to the contrary, we all fell for it. But your discovery with these mice proves that that didn't happen. Sandra's laptop was in the lab with her when she died. The battery was dead, but I took it back to Earth and handed it over to Zelik. I told him we should have forensic technicians conduct a thorough analysis back then, but Raj let it slip that it's been in storage ever since. I took it to a private digital forensics expert to see what we could get, and I think you're going to have to read it for yourself. There may be a way to find out exactly what happened to Sandra that morning, and it may even come from Sandra herself. Objective 3 is who killed Sandra, and this is the digital evidence forensics report. Work summary, analysis of retrieved laptop, vice dead on delivery, present and suspected foul play incident, high sensitivity, client requested that we unlock the computer, and if that's not possible, run a complete diagnostic analysis on the hardware. Trying to see what that says. So there's 3 pictures of the laptop, and then there's like the login screen. And then unlock device fail. We are unable to unlock the device. Admit account, ivey at astroiv.com, no password provided. System will erase in the event of 3 failed passwords in an hour. USB-C port scan results. Since laptop could not be unlocked, forensic analysis was limited to information collected through the USB-C port using proprietary scanning software. The scan results were typical for a device of this usage, except these findings that may be relevant to your investigation. Key findings. The hard drive was cloned on August 10th, 2021. Metadata analysis of the hard drive indicates that 100% of the files on this computer were last accessed on August 10th. Audio was recorded during the Delta One tragedy. We were able to determine the built-in microphone was actively recording audio on August 10th from 11:08 to 11:11. Audio files are likely stored on Astro's cloud services. Forensic examiner's conclusion. It is the forensic examiner's opinion that someone aboard the Delta cloned the contents of this computer within the time frame that Sandra was killed. No audio files were saved to this computer's hard drive. If they still exist, my guess is that they are stored somewhere on the Astro cloud. You could start by reaching out to IT to see if her employee login is still active on astroiv.com. Unsolved Case Files literally has a whole website imitating a space situation. So let's see. By reaching out to IT, like I actually Do we think maybe it's an automated email? I'm literally gonna do it. Give me Sandra's password. Okay, I did contact them because I thought it would be like an automated email. You have to just log in with the email that's on here. So what college did you attend? Which I think was on that newspaper thing for the building that was being built for her. Where'd she go? Rice University? What street did you grow up on? The guy lives on her house. The guru. Where is he? This guy. Do we think she lives at the same house? Probably not. Gemini Drive. No. How would we know where she grew up? Maybe the brother knows? Maybe the brother lives still in that house. Oh, okay. The brother lives on Jemison Street. That's where they grew up. So he's still living in that house. Okay. There. What is your favorite book? Sandra, girl. How would I find out where her favorite book is? Oh, remember she bought 500 books of the Guru or something, I think, right? What did I say earlier? Where's the Guru? It's actually with the Dr. Heidi Bauman. Sandra found his book, and where are we at right here? It doesn't say what the name of the book was. Guys, I have figured it out. I said earlier when we first began that these are just some of the books. So I'm assuming wherever, what's his name? The Guru? AJ, wherever his name is at, is the name of her favorite book here. So I'm going to say it's nonfiction, most likely. He said Swami Sigur, I think this is him, breathtaking. Because in this article here with the Houstonian Times, he says something about he only gets called it at a book signing. He gained the title of the Swami Singaruhu. That's the guy's name here. Oh my God. We are in the employee portal. So let's see. Welcome to your employee portal, Sandra. Okay, online file storage. We want to see what she was recording while uploading this file. Please click here to complete processing. And let's click here to retry. I'm kind of scared. I don't know if I want to finish this. And okay, sorry. I was pronouncing Hero's name as Hiro. I'm not sure if I'm going to edit and include that audio. I don't know if that will get copyrighted because it's like a recording that I don't own. But basically in that, I guess, in case I don't include it, I'll read what she said. She says, day 10 of the Delta One trip and nobody's killed each other, not yet. So we'll see if Hiro and Jordan make it out alive after working together. I'm surprised these cyber attacks haven't lightened up at all since we joined forces with Sasaki. A bunch of these are from inside the company. Why didn't this get flagged? Okay, that's why no one said anything. These are all from my old laptop, which I haven't touched since I upgraded in January. Where did I? It's in the guest house. So she left her laptop in her guest house, which is part of the objective that you have to answer. Gee, you scared me. How long have you been here? We should all head to the blue sector. I just need a second. The person suffocates her. Based off the audio, you can hear that's obviously a man, so we can eliminate Amelia. So we have Jordan, her brother. Based off Sandra's response to seeing whoever this was, I feel like she would have been asking them, like, what happened? You know, like, why are the lights out? The Colonel, I feel like he was there for his experiment, and I don't really think he has anything to do with it. So I'm going to eliminate him, honestly. I did say with Hiro, he was the rival, and it would make sense. The brother, I think there's the jealousy between them, but for the most part, him and Amelia were accounted for the whole time. I don't think he had the opportunity to kill her. Hiro did go to habitation for a couple minutes, but I think that was too late, because as they said, Sandra was already dead. And AJ is like really the only one that you don't know what he's up to. It's also a little sus that he kind of lives with her. I don't know if this is her man on the low. I want to say it's between these two, but I don't know why he would want, I don't know why AJ would want to kill her. But it seems like he kind of worked his way into her life for some reason. As I stated, Sandra had left her laptop in the guest house, so that was part one of figuring out who killed her. And what you have to keep in mind about the guest house, who is living in the guest house, but AJ is the killer. So after picking that, it says steal secrets from her computer, and we have one more objective. So here's a picture of AJ getting arrested, and it says, we got him, I sent you the audio, we found the cloned hard drive in his home, this one's open and shut, he won't be conning his way out of this. That was from Solomon there. Confession from Anthony Joseph Segretti. His real address is in Oregon. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I made a name for AJ Singh after moving to New York City. In a few short years, I went from a woo-woo yogi to the bespoke spiritual advisor to the 1% in what was quite possibly the biggest grift in the galaxy. I'd still be sitting pretty too if Hiro wasn't such a ham on social media. It was nothing personal. I liked Sandra. She was smart, brilliant, even maybe a little too smart for her own good. I knew Sandra was my mark the day she walked in the door, but my real meal ticket would come from Ivey itself. Insider trading isn't really my forte, but I figured if I could get on her computer, someone like Hiro Sasaki would be willing to pay millions under the table to get a peek. Sandra kept her laptop on hand 24/7 and locked up like Fort Knox if she needed to take so much as a bathroom break. I thought about stealing the whole thing, but had no idea I'd be able to use it or how easy it would be to track. I decided copying Sandra's hard drive to a portable device was a safer bet, but I needed her to unlock it first. I was focused on finding an opportunity as soon as I arrived on the Delta One. I figured the close quarters and change in routine might give me an opening. I nudged Sandra to step in while Hiro and Jordan were bickering and steered the conversation toward letting Hiro do that battery procedure himself. The Delta One only has one printer, and Jordan wrote the protocol right there on the computer attached to it. All I had to do was open recent. I saw the warning at the bottom, so I swapped the codes for active and emergency charge and hit print. Sandra spent mornings in the lab, so I knew where she'd be when Hiro got started. Hiro and Jordan would take care of themselves, but I needed to keep Kurt and Amelia busy. I told Kurt that I saw something flapping near the green sector hub the day before Hiro rotated the batteries, and sure enough, Kurt was outside the station right when I needed him to be. Amelia came by like clockwork every morning to drink my tea, so I slipped a laxative in her second cup and told her I was heading to the observatory to meditate. That's messed up. But she wasn't lying about the stomach issues. I went to the green hub instead, where I waited for the Jordan and Hiro show to start. My plan was to clone Sandra's computer while she was preoccupied trying to play mediator in the control room. That's when I overheard Sandra talking to herself, but then she started talking about me. Somehow my early attempts to get info off her old laptop were coming back to bite me, and I knew the jig was up. My head started spinning when I realized Houston PD would be on the ground waiting for me. There was no chance to escape, and if detectives started digging, they'd find enough dirt to lock me up. That's when everything went dark, and I played the only card I had left. I got behind Sandra and put her in a chokehold. It took a long time to be sure she was dead, but I couldn't risk leaving any marks. I hooked my portable SSD up with her laptop and cloned the hard drive. I rushed back to the observatory just before I heard Amelia come into the red hub screaming for Hiro. I had no idea my changes would nearly blow up the station. I just wanted Jordan and Hiro to get in a fight that would keep Sandra busy. But how was I supposed to know Kurt brought a class pet and that Solomon would be able to get the USSF to spill the beans on it? That recording was the real kicker, though. I went through every single one of the files I copied off her laptop looking for anything that might put them on my trail and didn't find anything. So I sold off what I could to foreign investors and bought a quiet place in Oregon to retire. I'd still be there resting on my laurels, not hurting anybody if Solomon could learn to let go. I wasn't lying when I told him that finding someone to blame wouldn't change anything. Pinning me won't bring her back, and it won't change that he wasn't there when she needed him. You tell him that for me. This case was a little bit harder than I expected, I will admit. If there's another case you guys want me to do, comment down below. I'm always up for suggestions. It might take me some time to get around to it, but I usually will do it. I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.